Danielle and I have been critical. We try to be fair of the Democratic Party, but it comes from a source of wanting to empower them to fight back against what I think we can, and I'm making an assumption here, Danielle, correct me if I'm wrong, what we call a counter-majoritarian GOP force that is against our democracy, right? Mm-hmm. And historically, Democrats have always, sometimes felt terrified to fight back because they believe they can engage in the identity politics and the culture war because the right wing has so weaponized it and accused Democrats of, you can't win the culture war. But you did something in your response, and I'm glad you mentioned it, where you you proactively said, I am, quote, I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom. And you use that to proactively push back and put forward a narrative of diversity. As a straight white mom, Christian white mom, a woman of faith, and I know faith is important to you and your background, this is against my values. And I thought that there was a very smart way of both using identity politics and actually waging into the culture war. And specifically, if you look at the latest data, right, 96% of Republicans in the House have voted against the right to use contraceptives in 2022. A majority of them are against marriage equality. A majority of them are against Roe v. Wade, and also zero exceptions to rape and incest. Most of them don't believe in climate change, gun control. We could go down the list. It seems to me, Mallory, that when it comes to these hot button issues, and it's almost like God is delivering a gift to Democrats when it comes to the culture war. Let's even book bans. 80% of Americans are against book bans, right? How can Democrats use this moment to go all in on the culture war and finally kind of do a reversal and get the advantage on Republicans and win over the people?
Yeah, so I think, number one, we have to acknowledge the culture wars for what they are, which from the Republican standpoint is made up bullshit. Like, let's just be real about it. Yes, there's real damage, but the idea somehow, and the example that I like to use is the bills that have been moving around the country to ban trans kids from playing sports on the team that matches their gender identity. We had similar legislation moving in Michigan, even though our Democratic governor would veto these bills, but that didn't stop the Republicans from having hearing after hearing after hearing, wasting time on what they were putting forward as the crisis of our time, right? They pulled this out of nowhere and said, this is the most important thing that we have to work on. The Michigan High School Athletic Association came out right away and said, these bills are completely unnecessary because we already have a process in place that has been working for 10 years. That if a student wants to apply to play on a sports team that matches their gender identity, they have to get approval from the team, the school, the family has to work with the community. Like, there's a whole process, and it works. And to put it into perspective, in Michigan, this is a state of 10 million people. There are 2 kids every year who apply for the waiver to play on the sports. 2 kids.
Wow.
So if you are telling me that the crisis of our time is 2 kids out of 10 million people, I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. And I think the better way for Democrats to engage in this is just to reveal how hollow it really is. Because I think as Democrats, we love research and data and analysis. And I think where we get trapped sometimes is we take the bait and then we're debating the issue on its merits when it doesn't have any merits. Yep. It is complete nonsense. So instead, the more effective thing to do is to say, this is nonsense, and it is just to distract from the fact that they're not doing anything to help on inflation, to lower gas prices, to fix healthcare costs or access, to fix the roads. All of those things, whether or not you are the parent
School
of a
mass shootings.
School mass shootings, right? If we actually care about protecting children, we would not be focused on whether or not a library might have a drag queen story time, which is another fake, crisis of our time. And we would focus on school shootings. So I think that is the way forward, instead of don't take the bait, don't fall for the trap, because we know that it's manufactured. But if we leave it alone, it might be manufactured, but it is doing real damage to people. So we have to blunt the attack right away, because they recoil pretty quickly when it points out that they don't actually have any policy proposals.
And it's funny because nobody in the media actually asked them what their policy proposals are. They actually just fall for the bullshit. One of the things, I want to go back to what you said earlier with regard to white women and the majority, because and recognizing that you will be okay right? But it is other people who are under threat. And so what are you doing, with the power that you have by virtue of being a white woman in America to help those that are marginalized? And I have been very vocal and very angry for quite some time at the 53% of white women that decided to vote for Donald Trump, at then the 56% in 2020 that decided to again vote for Donald Trump. And I wonder, I want to ask you this, as a white Christian suburban mom, what is it about white women that just has them sit on the sidelines and allow everybody else to do the heavy lifting? Because you did the heavy lifting, you are doing the heavy lifting, and by virtue of what you have said and what you are doing, are saying to, your community, come with me, right? And so I wonder, what do you understand the obstacle to be, Mallory, and what is it that we can do to get other white women to talk to other white women instead of it being the likes of myself or Wash, who what we say falls on non-listening ears?
And by the way, we've given you the power, by the power vested in us, you are now the culture ambassador of all white women.
Yes,
so feel free.
You got to be really careful in what context you say that, because that can be taken the wrong way really quickly. I saw somebody made a t-shirt of the I'm a straight white Christian married suburban, and out of context, I'm like, oh my God, that sounds like a white nationalist. Like, that's not okay.
Oh my God.
So you gotta be really careful with it. But I think a lot of it is fear. So when I ran for office for the first time in 2018, I flipped a Republican district. And I think a lot of people who've gotten to know me recently think she must be from a Democratic stronghold, because nobody else would be able to speak as forcefully if they were but I represent Mitt Romney's hometown. And what I found the first time I ran for office is it was a lot of white suburban women who either didn't vote consistently, believe it or not, voted with their husbands, regardless of kind of what their own beliefs were. And there is a fear of, if you're generally okay, I don't want to do anything to mess that up. And I think that causes people to naturally kind of retreat, especially if you see a tax being levied on somebody else. You recognize, you're like, well, my life isn't perfect. Things are still hard. I still got to get my kids to school. I got to pay bills. I got to do everything I need to do. I don't want to rock the boat. And when we look at a state like Virginia, where Glenn Youngkin got elected really by tapping into the frustrations of suburban white moms, who I think were rightfully burned out from the past few years with school closures, COVID restrictions. I mean, I had a baby during COVID. I tried to find childcare. I totally get it. Like, it has not been easy. That doesn't mean that it has been as challenging as it has been for some people. But I think we have to acknowledge as Democrats, it still sucks for everybody. And I think we have to give space to allow that, because what I heard from some white women in my community who were similarly frustrated with school closures, COVID restrictions in the past few years, I had a long conversation with a woman who reached out to me and said that she joined this parent group to really advocate for change with her school board. And what she wanted was better communication and parent representation. But she called me because she said the group she joined started targeting diversity, equity, and inclusion, started targeting the LGBTQ community. And this woman told me in no uncertain terms, I'm not this, but I also don't have anywhere else to go. I don't feel like I have an avenue to express my frustration. So part of what I was trying to do in my speech is give white women another way forward. It's we get you're frustrated and tired and burned out. I am too, but this is on us. This is our calling right now. We have to get together. And am very thankful for enough Black women in my life who've said to me in no uncertain terms, go get your people. And I heard it, right? So and that's really what I've tried to focus on. And some people have asked me, why haven't you identified other groups in your speech? And I'm like, because the reality is, people like me, we're late. We're not too late, because we still have a democracy for now. But we are late to this. There have been people who've been doing this work much, much longer than we have. And that's my hope, is kind of leveraging this platform. I have been doing a lot of work with groups like Red, Wine, and Blue, which if you haven't heard of this group, it is a group basically of suburban white moms around the country who are having this moment of realizing like, this is not okay. I want to do something. I have no idea where to start. So we did a virtual training on, how to kind of get active in this space and how to become an advocate. And I joined them for a Zoom. I think they expected a few hundred people would show up, and 8,000 women showed up on a Zoom. They had to upgrade their account. And that's exciting to me because I think there's a recognition from a lot of people like me, like, hey, we messed up. We're late. We got to go. How do we do it? And I think we have to figure out as Democrats and people who care about this, how do we fill that void so we don't lose people who look like me, who want somewhere to go and need that channeled in a productive way, not in a negative way.